Chapter 8: The Perfect Disguise. Caleb was enjoying the time he was spending with Blaze. He was also feeling very positive about the project he was working on, and about all the new things he was on track to learn in the next while. Video A7 had introduced him to a smart system for goal setting that he knew would work. First thing in the morning, he had closed his eyes and tried to recall what each of the letters stood for: S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and T for having a time component. He was amazed that he remembered without hesitation. Blaze and his friends had definitely been right when they advised the last bit of time prior to sleep was great for reviewing things you really wanted to remember. Caleb was also delighted to learn that he would be taking up stargazing in the future and that he would be getting a telescope at some point. He supposed there may be lots of details about his future that he could learn from Blaze. The next day went quickly, his thoughts on continuing the conversations he was having with Blaze. Sure enough, at the same time, in the same place, there was Blaze, waiting for him at the corner table in the library. Caleb dumped his books on the table and, before even sitting down, started questioning Blaze about his comments regarding MAs. "Whoa, slow down," Blaze directed, holding up his hand. "You need to get some work done first. Then we'll talk about the future some more." "Okay, no problem. You know, thinking back to the video you had me watch, I must say I laughed about the thought of knowing the system would work. There is nothing like seeing an older version of yourself who has obviously been able to set and reach many goals, to give you an extra boost of self-confidence," Caleb offered. "You know that you don't need to focus on me to know it's going to work, don't you? End-in-mind thinking is the key for anyone to make improvements in the direction they want. You picture the thing you want to have happen and then you make a plan, and set goals, to get there. If you really think about it, it's actually a system that lets everyone look into the future." Blaze responded. "Wow, so what you're saying is that if anyone committed to applying the clever quick steps properly, they would essentially know what was going to happen in the future," Caleb concluded, "and they wouldn't actually need to see their older selves." "Well put, that is what I'm saying." The term growth mindset was also used at the end of the last video. When someone has a growth mindset, they are always considering what their future selves will look like, they are reflecting on where they currently are, and they are setting goals to make the changes they want. In all situations, they anticipate growth and look for ways they can move forward. Blaze smiled as he appeared to take notice of the gears turning in Caleb's mind. "I get it," Caleb said. "I'll treat clever quick with a little more respect now that I know that it is my other window to the future." He sat and pulled out his assignment notes. Today was for getting some information together about why humans might want to look for other places to live. Blaze had found him a great book on climate change. He got busy reading the table of contents and introduction, then chose some appropriate sections of the book and began reading and taking notes. It wasn't long before he had filled many pages with the key thoughts that could cause humans to look for other places to live. Talk about frightening. MAs couldn't be more frightening than climate change, could they be? Caleb muttered to himself, a little louder than he had intended. "Actually, they are both frightening, Caleb," Blaze responded. "But for quite different reasons." "You're absolutely correct, climate change is actually extremely frightening. Much work has and will be done in the future to reverse the effects of pollution and lack of care humans have shown toward the Earth. It's actually one of the reasons I am here, back in your time. You shouldn't feel any less special, but you're actually just one of the reasons I've come back. The other is to set in motion various changes that humans need to begin to make over the next 8 years. Information from the future has indicated that these next few years are critical. That was the most important message that our older self had brought to me when he visited, next to, of course, the solutions to our time travel issues. He told us of a silence from beyond a certain year in the future. The future trackers had determined that human society breaks down at that point, if changes are not made. Blaze had that faraway look in his eyes again as he prepared to continue. "Future trackers? What are they?" Caleb interrupted. "Oh, sorry, of course, that would be a new term for you. It's a job that will be available by the time we're in our 20s. Future trackers are sort of like the opposite of historians. Instead of studying the past and what we can learn from our past mistakes, they study the future and try to determine what mistakes will be made or are currently being made that are so serious that they need intervention to save us from some great catastrophe, Blaze explained. Okay, so that's what you're doing here? You've been sent back to help people make changes? To save humans from some great catastrophe? As Caleb gazed at Blaze, waiting for some clarification, all he saw in return was a single finger that Blaze pressed to his lips and a slight head nod, indicating that someone was coming up behind Caleb. Grace, good to see you again, said Blaze. With a smile, Caleb turned to greet his friend. Grace, I'm glad you found us, Caleb said. Wow, you guys are sure hard at work. Wait, what? Is Blaze helping you with your project? Hey, no fair. Grace exclaimed. What do you mean, no fair? Show me in the rulebook of project completion where it says you can't have a research assistant, Caleb replied. What? Research assistant? Why would Blaze waste so much time helping you? Grace quizzed. Actually, helping Caleb do the best he can is my pleasure. I truly believe that when Caleb succeeds, I succeed. Blaze retorted. As Caleb broke down into fits of laughter, Grace looked from him to Blaze, who now had a smile on his face. Grace had the impression that there was some big joke that she was not in on. I'd be happy to be your research assistant as well, Grace. I think Caleb is well on his way to getting this project organized, Blaze offered. Caleb's mouth sagged open. He had no idea what Blaze's angle on this was. I don't know what to say, Blaze. Grace replied. How about yes, Grace? Blaze asked. Well, sure, okay, thanks. Grace smiled. So, let's get started. Are you here to work on your passion project as well? Blaze queried. Well, yes I am, Grace said. Tell us what you're thinking of working on, Grace, Blaze commented. Well, I want to do something in the medical field, Grace began. I've actually always wanted to be a doctor. Well, ever since my Auntie Cara gave me a stethoscope when I was a young girl. I spent many hours listening to beating hearts. That is, until I lost the end part that lets you hear the faint sounds. Wow, a doctor, that's great, Grace, Caleb interjected. I know you like to help people, so that should work well for you. Thanks, Caleb. So, Blaze, what might be a good project to point me in the medical direction? Well, becoming a doctor is going to take a lot of work and time. It's a lifetime goal that I would say would involve many long-term goals. You can begin listing them if you like, but you won't be able to act on most of them for a number of years yet, Blaze began. But that shouldn't stop you from making some initial goals that you can work on this year, including some learning that you can do in your passion project. Perhaps you can think of something to do with basic anatomy, an important medical discovery, or a procedure that's saving lives. Here, there happens to be several general medical books right here on the corner of the table. What a coincidence! That should get you started. Without looking at the books, Blaze reached over and pushed them towards her. Blaze was on a roll. Now Grace, along with Caleb, sat with their mouths open. Blaze continued. Some browsing and you should have your topic in a half hour or so. For more up-to-date discoveries, like something to do with the recent pandemics, you will probably need to check in some magazines or journals. Let me know and I can pull them for you, Blaze concluded. Beyond that, I suggest a few more long-term goals for this year. It's only a couple of months past January, so why don't you call them your New Year's resolutions? How about one that involves helping in an animal shelter or animal rescue center? That could get you some experience working with people and helping in a somewhat medical sense. You're a little young to be helping people with healthcare concerns. But volunteer work like this could get you some people opportunities later. That, or you might end up preferring veterinary science and put your medical thoughts towards helping animals. Blaze stopped for a quick breath before continuing. Grace and Caleb continued to sit with their mouths open. You'll need to learn about SMART goal setting to really get this off to a great start. We're almost out of time today, but Caleb can share a video with you that he just watched. It's video A7 in the Clever Quick series, End in Mind Thinking, Part 2. He'll give you the link. Have a look at it and I can help you set up some fantastic goals. Also, Caleb can share a link with you for video A8 as well. That one focuses on setting lifetime goals. Sounds like it would be good timing for you to see that one right away. What do you say? His question was, at first, met with continued silence. Caleb was completely tongue-tied. Grace just continued sitting in shocked silence, unable to respond. A full minute ticked by before Grace found some words. "Thank you," she began. "This means a lot to me. But this is crazy. How could you possibly have known, and had all this prepared, before I even spoke?" After a pause of about a minute, while they all sat in an awkward silence, Blaze spoke. "Grace, I feel you need to know a little more about me and what I'm doing here." Startled, Caleb dropped his pen and stared at Blaze. "Wah," he began. "I'm not actually Caleb's cousin," Blaze continued. Caleb stopped breathing. "No, I'm actually an older version of Caleb, from the future. I've come back to help him with his school organization," Blaze stated, matter-of-factly. Everything had gone quiet around the table. Caleb was still holding his breath. Grace had the strangest expression on her face as she stared at Blaze and then glanced at Caleb. "Okay, fine," Grace said. "You don't have to explain, but you also don't have to make fun of me. I'm sure the truth wouldn't hurt. It's about time you both grew up a little." Caleb raised his eyebrows at Grace's reference to time. He also resumed breathing. Over the next half hour, Grace thumbed through the medical books and Caleb completed the plans for his project and continued making notes from his book on climate change. Every once in a while, he would steal a glance at Blaze, then Grace, then back to Blaze. Sure enough, after about 30 minutes, Grace had come up with her topic. She got up to leave. Caleb was still in shock. Blaze just seemed to be amused. "See you in class tomorrow, Caleb. And thanks, Blaze, whoever you are. I don't know whether you are actually Caleb's cousin, or whatever, but it doesn't matter. You've been very helpful, and you've got a great sense of humor. See you, Grace. I'll send you those video links after dinner," Caleb choked. Blaze nodded. As Grace left the library, Caleb turned to Blaze. "That was funny. Who knew that the truth would be the perfect disguise?" Caleb began. "I don't want to sound possessive or anything, but why did you promise to help Grace so much? I thought this special arrangement was just you and me, or should I say, me and me, or is it, you and you?" Caleb questioned. "There's something I haven't told you about Grace. Trust me, you won't regret any investment we put into helping her," Blaze stated. "What are you talking about?" Caleb replied. "That's enough distraction for today. You've got work to focus on. Get back to your project." Caleb knew better than to argue with Blaze. He always seemed to do one step ahead. Still, he wondered what was so special about Grace as he noted the faraway look that had returned to Blaze's eyes.